What you're about to see was carved into stone more than 2,000 years ago, and it looks shockingly similar to a modern light bulb. Yeah, a light bulb in ancient Egypt. Inside a hidden chamber of the Dendera temple complex, archaeologists discovered a strange carving that has confused historians for decades. Some experts say it's just symbolic art, but others believe something very different. They think this carving might show an ancient device, something that looks like electricity thousands of years before it should have existed. So in this series, we're going deep into the mystery known as the Dendera Light. We're exploring the hidden chambers, the strange discoveries, and the theories that most history books never talk about. And by the end of this series, you'll see why this carving might be one of the most mysterious things ever found in Egypt. Let's start with the carving that shouldn't exist.
The Dendera Light. Part 1. The carving that shouldn't exist. The first thing Daniel noticed was the silence. Not the quiet you get in a library or late at night in a city. This was different. Ancient. Heavy. The kind of silence that felt like it had been waiting thousands of years for someone to disturb it. The flashlight beam trembled slightly in his hand as he stepped deeper into the underground chamber of the Temple of Hathor in Dendera. Officially, this part of the temple wasn't open to the public. Unofficially, people like Daniel had a way of getting access to places history preferred to keep closed. Daniel Carter wasn't a treasure hunter. He wasn't exactly an archaeologist either. He was something more dangerous. He was a researcher who asked questions that made institutions uncomfortable. And for the last 3 months, one question had taken over his life. What if the ancient Egyptians understood electricity? It sounded ridiculous at first, until he saw the images. Carvings on the walls of a hidden crypt beneath the temple. Images that looked wrong. Not wrong for ancient Egypt, wrong for history itself. 3 months earlier, Boston. Daniel sat in front of his computer at 2:13 a.m., staring at a set of photographs that had been circulating quietly in a small academic forum. Most people ignored them. A few laughed, but Daniel couldn't stop looking. The image showed a long, oval-shaped object carved into stone. Inside it was a serpent-like form. Beneath it stood figures holding something that looked eerily similar to a cable or support structure, and at the end of the object, a lotus-shaped base. If you looked at it from a modern perspective, it resembled something impossible, a giant light bulb. People online had started calling it something strange, the Dendera Light. Daniel leaned back in his chair. "That can't be right," he muttered. Ancient Egypt had oil lamps, torches, mirrors that reflected sunlight into tombs. But electricity? Thousands of years ago? Impossible. Unless... His phone vibrated on the desk. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. "Hello?" A voice spoke quietly. "You're looking at the Dendera reliefs." Daniel sat up straight. "Who is this?" "You're asking the wrong question. You should be asking why no one wants people to study them too closely." Daniel frowned. "I'm just looking at photos." "That's exactly the problem." The call ended, just like that. No explanation, no goodbye. But 2 minutes later, an email arrived. One sentence, one location. Dendera, Egypt. Crypt-level access, 3 weeks. Daniel stared at the screen. He should have ignored it. Any rational person would. But curiosity has a strange gravity. It pulls harder the more impossible something looks. And so 3 weeks later, Daniel was standing inside a chamber that most people on Earth would never see. Present day, Dendera Temple Crypt.
The stone walls were covered in carvings, hieroglyphs layered over centuries of history. But Daniel wasn't here for those. He moved deeper until his flashlight beam hit something that made him stop walking. There it was, the carving, the same one from the photos, but seeing it in person was different, much different. The scale alone was shocking. It stretched across the wall like a diagram. The oval structure, the serpent inside it, figures standing around it, and the strange pillar-like object connected to the end. Daniel stepped closer. His heart began beating faster, because the resemblance to modern technology wasn't subtle anymore. It was disturbingly clear. Daniel raised his camera and took several photos. Click, click, click. Then he noticed something odd. The carving didn't look symbolic. It looked technical, almost like an illustration, a blueprint. "That's impossible," he whispered. But the deeper he studied the wall, the more unsettling the details became. The serpent inside the oval wasn't just decorative. It followed a line, a central axis, almost like energy moving through a tube. Daniel shook his head. "You're projecting modern ideas onto ancient art," experts had said. Archaeologists had explained this many times. The carving represented the god Har-Samtus emerging from a lotus, a symbolic depiction of creation, mythology, religion, not technology. But then Daniel noticed something no one had mentioned in the academic papers. Near the base of the carving were smaller figures, priests or maybe engineers. They appeared to be interacting with the structure, adjusting it, supporting it, operating it. And suddenly the room felt colder. Daniel stepped back and scanned the rest of the crypt. That's when he realized something strange. This carving wasn't alone. There were multiple versions of it, several, all showing the same structure, the same object, repeated, like instructions, like a process, a system. And that's when the idea hit him. Not a religious symbol, a device ancient people wanted to record.
Or remember. Daniel exhaled slowly. "This changes everything." But someone else spoke from the darkness behind him. "No," the voice said calmly. "It changes nothing." Daniel spun around, flashlight shaking. The beam revealed a man standing at the entrance of the crypt, tall, calm, watching him carefully. "How long have you been there?" Daniel asked. "Long enough." "Who are you?" The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked closer, examining the carvings. "You're not the first person to come here with that theory," the man said. Daniel narrowed his eyes. "But very few make it this far." A strange tension filled the chamber. Daniel tried to read the man's expression. Scientist? Government official? Security? Or something else entirely? "You contacted me," Daniel said. The man smiled faintly. "No." "Then how did you know I was coming here?" The man looked back at the carving. "That relief has been attracting the wrong kind of attention for decades." Daniel's heart skipped slightly. "What do you mean?" The man ran his fingers lightly across the stone wall. "Every generation," he said, "someone looks at this and thinks they've discovered something hidden. And every time," the man said quietly, "they get closer than they should." Daniel felt a chill crawl up his spine. "Closer to what?" The man turned toward him slowly. "To the question that scares historians." Daniel waited. The chamber felt smaller now, the silence heavier. Finally, the man spoke. "What if ancient civilizations didn't discover electricity?" He paused. "What if they remembered it?" Daniel stared at him. "What does that mean?" The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pointed his flashlight to a section of the wall Daniel hadn't noticed yet. A smaller carving, partially damaged, but still visible. Daniel stepped closer, and that's when he saw it. A figure holding something that looked like a rod, connected to the same structure. But what froze Daniel in place was the shape at the end of the rod. It looked exactly like a filament inside glass. Daniel's mind raced. No way! The man's voice was almost a whisper now. People focus on the big carving. He gestured around the crypt. But this, he pointed to the damaged section, this is the one that shouldn't exist. Daniel leaned closer to the wall, trying to understand what he was seeing. Then the man said something that made Daniel's blood run cold. This crypt was sealed for a reason. Daniel slowly turned. What reason? The man looked him straight in the eyes. Because the last time someone decoded it. He paused. The power went out across half of Cairo. Daniel blinked. That's not funny. I'm not joking. A deep rumbling sound echoed faintly through the temple above them. Daniel frowned. Did you hear that? The man didn't answer. Instead, he looked toward the ceiling, listening. Then he said something quietly. It's starting earlier than I expected. Daniel's chest tightened. What's starting? The man turned off his flashlight. The crypt fell into darkness, and in that darkness, Daniel noticed something impossible. A faint glow coming from the carving. The Dendera Light.